The wind blew strong across the rocky hills. The sky was dark, filled with thick black clouds. Lightning flashed in the distance, and thunder followed close behind. The air smelled like rain, dust, and danger. Joshua Reed, a human engineer, stood at the edge of the cliff, holding his broken drone. He had come to this alien planet for a small repair job. He didn't expect trouble. But then he heard it, a sound faint at first, then louder, a child's voice crying out through the storm. "Please, human, help. My mom is trapped in the Sky Hunter's nest." Joshua turned fast. He saw a small alien girl standing in the rain. She looked scared, wet, and hurt. Her skin was a light purple color, and her eyes glowed softly. Her clothes were torn, and her tiny feet were bleeding from cuts. She looked up at Joshua with tears falling down her cheeks. "They took her," the girl said, shaking. "The Sky Hunters took my mom." Joshua stared at the sky. He had heard stories of the Sky Hunters, giant flying creatures with sharp claws. And deadly speed, they lived high up in the cliffs and attacked anything they saw as a threat. Most people stayed far away from their territory. "Where is the nest?" Joshua asked. The girl raised her hand and pointed toward a tall, sharp rock pillar far in the distance. There, near the top, was a large nest made of bones, feathers, and vines. Even from this distance, it looked dangerous. The winds were stronger up there, and the path was steep and deadly. "She's in there," the girl said. She screamed. And then they carried her away. "I followed, but I can't climb, I can't fly." Joshua looked at the nest, then at the girl. His heart tightened. She couldn't be more than 6 years old. She had followed those monsters all alone. "What's your name?" Joshua asked, kneeling down. "Mika," she whispered. "My name is Mika." "All right, Mika," he said gently. "I'll try to help your mom. Can you stay here and wait for me?" She hesitated, then nodded slowly. Joshua took off his backpack and pulled out his climbing gear. The wind tugged at his coat, and the sound of the Sky Hunters echoed above. It was risky, maybe even foolish, but he couldn't leave someone to die. Not while a little girl cried in the rain, begging for help. As he checked the ropes and powered up his exogloves, Mika spoke again. "They will come for you," she said. "They don't like strangers near their nest." Joshua smiled at her, though his chest was tight with fear. "Good thing I'm not from here," he said. He hooked himself to the cliff wall and fired a grappling line. It latched onto a rocky ledge, and he pulled himself up. The climb was hard, slippery, and the storm made everything worse. Each time lightning flashed, he saw sharp rocks and broken bones stuck in the mountain. Some looked like animals, but others looked like people. Below, Mika sat on the cold ground, hugging her knees. She watched the human disappear into the fog and whispered, "Please come back." Halfway up, Joshua stopped to catch his breath. Suddenly, a loud screech echoed through the sky. One of the Sky Hunters flew past, its wings cutting the air like blades. Joshua pressed against the rocks. Holding his breath, the creature didn't see him, but it circled back. Time was running out. He climbed higher, faster, his hands aching. The nest was close now, just above his head. Another flash of lightning showed a figure moving inside. A woman, weak and bleeding, tied with thick vines. "Mika's mother," Joshua whispered. He reached the edge of the nest and carefully pulled himself up. The nest was huge, large enough for the winged beasts. And in the center, the alien woman lay still, her chest rising slowly. Joshua moved toward her. But the wind shifted. The Sky Hunter returned, this time flying straight for the nest. Its red eyes locked on him, and its mouth opened with a deafening roar. "No time," Joshua said to himself. He pulled a small energy shield from his belt and threw it between him and the creature. The beast slammed into it, bounced off, and screamed in anger. Flying off for another attack, Joshua knelt beside the alien woman, checking her pulse. She was alive, but just barely. Her eyes opened slightly, and she whispered something. But the wind stole her words. Joshua grabbed his cum. "Mika's mother is alive," he said. "But I need to get her down now." Another scream came from above. The sky hunter was coming back, faster this time. Joshua's hands shook as he pulled a rescue strap from his gear. He had only seconds. The nest shook, the wind howled, and Joshua knew this was just the beginning. Joshua tightened the rescue strap around the alien woman's waist. She was too weak to stand, her body limp, and her eyes half closed. Every breath she took was slow and painful. He clipped her to his chest and whispered, "We're getting out of here." But the nest creaked under his feet. It wasn't just the wind. Something heavy was coming back. Fast, Joshua turned. The sky hunter was returning, a dark shadow flying low between the cliffs. Its wings stretched wide, its eyes burning like fire. This time, it was angry, and this time, it wasn't going to miss. He pressed a button on his belt, activating the emergency descent rope. It fired downward, latching to a ledge far below. The rope hummed as it pulled tight. Then the nest exploded. The sky hunter slammed into the side, sending broken branches, feathers, and bones flying. Joshua jumped, the alien mother strapped to him. The wind screamed in his ears as they dropped. The beast chased them, its claws swiping through the air. Joshua swung toward the rock wall, slamming hard but holding on. His shoulder burned, but he didn't let go. He glanced down, still too far from the ground. He had to slow the fall, or both of them would die. He reached for the side booster on his boot, twisted the dial, and hit the release. A soft burst of energy slowed their drop, not enough to make it smooth, but enough to survive. They crashed onto a lower ledge, rolling into the wet stone. Joshua groaned in pain. The alien woman didn't move. He quickly checked her pulse. It was still there, weak but steady. He looked up. The sky hunter was circling, angry but slower now. It was hurt too. One of its wings bent at a strange angle. Joshua pulled the woman close and shielded her with his body. Then he whispered into his cum, "Mika, can you hear me?" Back on the ridge, the little girl jumped to her feet. "I hear you," she said quickly. "Is she alive?" "She's alive, but I need help," Joshua replied. "I need to carry her down the rest of the way." "I know a path," Mika said. "A small tunnel behind the rocks." Joshua looked around, then saw a crack in the cliff wall, just wide enough for a human to pass through. He stood, lifted Mika's mother in his arms, and moved toward the crack. The wind tried to push him back, but he didn't stop. Inside the tunnel, it was dark and cold. The walls were damp, and the ground was slippery. Joshua moved carefully, holding the woman tightly. His breath echoed in the narrow space. Every step hurt, but he kept going. "Mika, I'm in the tunnel," he said. "Where does it lead?" "It goes down to the riverbed," she answered. "I'll meet you there." Joshua smiled. Even though no one could see it, she was brave, so small, but brave, and smart enough to guide him through this mess as he moved deeper into the tunnel. He heard noises, not sky hunters this time, but other creatures hiding in the dark. He pressed his hand light against the tunnel wall. Glowing insects scattered, small eyes blinked in the corners, but nothing attacked. Then he saw light at the end of the tunnel. A faint glow. He picked up speed, ignoring the pain in his leg. The woman in his arms groaned softly. It gave him hope. She was still fighting. At the tunnel's end, Joshua stepped out into the open. The storm was still above, but calmer now. Rain fell in soft sheets, and the sky glowed orange and purple. And there, standing by a large tree, was Mika. She ran to him, eyes wide, hands shaking. "Mom," she cried. Is she? She's alive," Joshua said. Kneeling down, Mika dropped beside her mother, hugging her gently. The woman opened her eyes for a second and smiled weakly. "Mika," she whispered. "You found help?" The girl nodded, crying. "I told you. Someone would come," she said. "I told you a human would help." Joshua sat back, breathing hard. He looked up at the cliffs. The sky hunter had not followed. For now, they were safe. But he knew this wasn't over. Sky hunters didn't forget. And this world was full of dangers he didn't yet understand. Still, he had done something good. He had saved a mother, answered a cry for help, and gained the trust of a little alien girl. As the storm faded and the first star appeared in the sky, Mika looked at him and said softly, "You didn't have to help us, but you did." Joshua nodded. Sometimes doing the right thing is the only thing that matters. Night had fallen across the valley. Faint stars flickered above the broken clouds. A small fire crackled under a tree, giving a soft, warm light. Joshua sat close, wrapping a heat blanket around the alien woman. Her name was Lyra, Mika's mother. And she was finally breathing easier. Mika sat by her side, gently wiping mud from her mother's face. She had not stopped watching her since they escaped the nest. Joshua glanced at the cliffs one more time. He didn't like the silence. The sky hunter was wounded, yes, but not dead. And beasts like that didn't forget. "You're lucky," Lyra whispered, her voice raspy. "No one else would have come." Joshua smiled gently. "Maybe they were smart," he joked. "Climbing into a sky hunter's nest is not my best plan, Lyra." Gave a weak laugh. Mika didn't laugh. She looked up at the trees, then whispered, "Something is out there." Joshua froze. He looked into the darkness. For a moment, he saw nothing, then movement. Shadows between the trees, just beyond. The light, he stood quickly and picked up his scanner. The screen blinked softly, then gave a single word, "Life form unknown." "Stay close," Joshua said quietly. "Both of you from the trees." A figure stepped into the firelight. It wasn't a sky hunter. It walked on two legs. Tall and covered in black armor made from beast bone and hide. Its face was hidden. Behind a mask, it held a long staff, the tip glowing blue. "Peace," the figure said. Its voice was deep, but calm. Joshua lowered his tool slowly. "Who are you?" he asked. The figure pointed to the sky. "I am a watcher of the peaks," he said. "I saw your fight with a hunter. You should not be alive," the watcher added. "But you are." Joshua stayed quiet. Mika stepped closer to her mom. Holding her hand, the watcher looked down at them. "I came to warn you," he said. "The sky hunter you wounded it belongs to the elder nest." Joshua frowned. "What does that mean?" "It means," the watcher said slowly, "that its brothers will come looking for revenge." Lyra's eyes widened. "More will come," she whispered. The watcher nodded. "You must leave this place before the next moonrise," he said, "or the next time there will be no escape." Joshua didn't argue. He had faced one sky hunter and barely survived. If more came, he wouldn't be able to protect them. "Where can we go?" he asked. The watcher pointed toward the east. "There is an old shelter hidden inside the cliffs near the river canyon," he said. "It was built by the first settlers, abandoned now, but strong." Joshua nodded. "Thank you," he said. "Why help us?" The watcher paused, then said softly, "Because once a human helped me," and without another word, he turned and disappeared into the trees. The fire crackled again, and silence returned. Joshua looked at Lyra, then Mika. They were both scared but safe for now. "We move at dawn," he said. Morning came fast. The sky turned orange and gold, and strange birds flew above the trees. Joshua helped Lyra sit up, wrapping her in a sling across his back. Mika followed close, her hand never letting go of his shirt. The path was rough, covered in roots and thick leaves. Twice they had to hide from distant screeches in the sky. The sky hunters were searching, and they were getting closer. Hours passed, and Joshua's legs burned from carrying the weight. But he didn't stop. He kept moving, one step at a time. For Lyra, for Mika, and maybe for something bigger, they reached a ridge that overlooked the canyon. And there it was partly hidden by vines and stone. An old shelter built into the rock. It looked broken from the outside, but still strong. They entered carefully. Inside was dark, but dry. The air smelled of dust and old metal. Joshua found a power panel and pressed a button. Lights blinked once, then came on, dim and yellow, but enough. "This will work," he said. "We'll rest here." Mika helped her mom lie down on a soft bench. Joshua checked the door-thick steel. Still working, he locked it from inside, then activated the scanner. He could still feel them, those flying monsters. He knew they were out there, circling, waiting. But for now, they were safe. Mika looked up at him, her voice soft. "Will they find us?" Joshua didn't lie. "Maybe," he said. "But if they do, I'll be ready." The old shelter was quiet. Dust floated in the warm light from above. The hum of ancient machines echoed softly through the narrow halls. It felt safe, but only on the surface. Joshua leaned against the wall. Checking his suit's energy levels, he hadn't eaten in hours, and the pain in his shoulders was getting worse. But rest had to wait. Across the room, Lyra lay on a mat. Her wounds cleaned and bandaged. She was still weak, but her eyes were open now, watching every move. Mika sat close to her, holding her hand tightly. "You should rest too," Lyra whispered to Joshua. He shook his head. "Not yet," he replied. "They're still out there." He had scanned the area 3 times. Each time, the scanner blinked nothing near. But Joshua had learned not to trust silence. Not on this planet. Not after what he saw in that nest. Suddenly, the scanner beeped just once. A faint signal. Weak and flickering, Joshua stood quickly, stepping toward the sealed metal door. The scanner blinked again, stopped. "Mika," he said, trying to stay calm, "help your mother hide." The little girl froze for a second, then nodded. She helped her mom move into the corner, behind a pile of broken crates. Joshua turned off the lights, then crouched near the entrance. He held his plasma tool tightly, eyes locked on the metal door. His breath slowed, and then he heard it. A soft thud, then another. Wings. He couldn't see them, but he knew the sound. Sky hunters had landed nearby. He counted 1, 2, maybe 3, too many for a straight fight. He needed to buy time, so he stayed quiet, listening, waiting. Claws scraped across the roof. A shadow moved past a vent. The monsters were trying to find a way in. Then one of the vents cracked open. A long, sharp claw poked through the gap. It reached around, searching blindly. Joshua aimed carefully, took a breath, and fired. A blast of blue light hit the claw, slicing it clean off. The creature shrieked in rage, the sound echoing through the rocks. Joshua moved fast, sealing the vent shut again. Metal hissed as it melted, locking the hole tight. But the shriek had been a signal. Outside, wings beat the air, and the ground shook as the creatures surrounded. "The shelter, they're calling more," Joshua said under his breath. "They're not hunting anymore. They're laying a trap." He opened the emergency hatch behind the supply room. It led into a narrow shaft, dropping straight into the canyon below. It was meant as an escape route long ago. Now, it might be their only hope. "Mika, Lairui, have to move," he said. Mika helped her mom up, supporting her with both arms. They followed Joshua into the shaft. It was cold, dark, and smelled of rust. The sounds of claws and wings grew louder behind them. The sky hunters were inside the shelter now, tearing through the walls, breaking the silence. Joshua pulled a flare. from his belt and threw it down the shaft. It lit the tunnel in red light, showing the path ahead. They climbed down fast, step after step, their hands gripping the old metal bars. Then halfway down, Joshua's foot slipped. He fell hard, hitting his shoulder on the wall. Pain shot through him, but he gritted his teeth and kept going. He couldn't stop now. He wouldn't. At the bottom of the shaft, they came out into a hidden cave. Water trickled through the rocks, and strange glowing moss lit the walls. They followed. The sound of wind, a narrow crack in the stone, led outside into the lower canyon. They had escaped again. But Joshua knew it wouldn't last. Outside, the wind was strong. The sky above them was open. And far in the distance, the screech of sky hunters echoed through the air. "They'll come again," Lyra said weakly. "Yes," Joshua replied. "But this time, we make our own trap." He looked up at the canyon walls, thinking. He had seen old mining tech buried in the rocks, machines left behind decades ago. If he could power them, maybe he could turn this place into a cage. Not for them, but for the hunters. Mika stepped beside him, her voice quiet. "You're not afraid, are you?" Joshua looked down at her and smiled a tired smile. "I'm always afraid," he said, "but I don't run." The canyon air was colder now. Wind passed through the narrow stone walls like a ghost. Joshua stood alone on a rocky ledge, looking down at the broken mining machines buried in the ground. They were old, forgotten by time, but he saw possibilities. Wires, motors, power coils. If he could bring even one of them to life, he might have a way to fight back. Behind him, Mika and Lyra waited inside the cave. Lyra was healing slowly, but still too weak to stand on her own. Mika didn't complain. Not even once. She brought water, watched over her mother, and even helped. Joshua carried tools, but now Joshua needed time. Time to prepare a trap, because the sky hunters weren't done. And he could feel them getting closer. He knelt beside a half-buried machine. Once used to break stone and melt ores, its power cell was cracked, but the backup core blinked dimly with the right adjustments. He could turn it into something deadly, maybe. A heat burst or sonic boom, something loud enough to blind or confuse a winged beast. Joshua worked fast, his fingers moving over dusty buttons and old wires. The storm from days ago had passed, but a darker storm was building above this one with wings and teeth. Back in the cave, Mika helped her mom sip warm water. "Will the human win again?" she asked softly. Lyra gave a weak smile. "I don't know," she said, "but he's not like the others." Mika tilted her head. "Because he's brave." "No," Lyra whispered, "because he cares." Meanwhile, Joshua connected to wires and the machine buzzed to life. It gave off a high-pitched hum. Louder than he expected, he ducked down quickly, checking the sky. Nothing yet. But they'd hear it. They always did. He worked through the day. Building traps using what the canyon had, he used sharp rocks as pressure triggers, energy coils as bait. The goal wasn't to kill them all, just to scare them. Blind them, push them back. By nightfall, he had 3 devices ready, each hidden. In a narrow flight path near the cave entrance, he returned to the cave, exhausted. But Mika ran up to him with a smile. "I kept watch," she said proudly. Nothing came. Joshua ruffled her hair. "Good job," he said, sitting down near. "Lyra, how do you feel?" "Like I was eaten and spit out," she said dryly. Joshua chuckled. "Well, they tried," he said. "But you're still here." They shared a quiet meal, chewing on dried root cakes and sipping filtered water. Then the sound came, a low, distant cry in the night sky. Joshua stood up fast. He looked at the scanner, blinked 2. "No, 3, he said. Sky hunters. Mika's face turned pale. Lyra pulled her daughter close. Joshua grabbed his plasma cutter and a metal staff. "Stay hidden," he told them. "Don't come out until I say." He left the cave and stepped. Into the dark, moonlight lit the canyon walls, making the shadows deeper and sharper. The sound of wings beat through the air like thunder. Then he saw them, dark shapes above, circling lower. They had found him. They remembered. Joshua ran, fast and loud. He wanted them to chase him, and they did. The first one dove, talons wide. Aiming for his back, he jumped aside, rolled, and pressed the remote trigger. A hidden coil exploded in light. A wave of sound burst through the air, loud and sharp like a scream. The Sky Hunter flew straight through it, then slammed into the canyon wall. Dazed, the second one shrieked. Spinning away, the third came lower. Too fast to turn, Joshua triggered the next trap. A net of fine metal lines launched from the rocks. The beast crashed into it, screeching as sparks flew from its body. Joshua didn't wait. He ran back toward the final trap, the biggest one, the one he had placed just outside the cave. The first hunter recovered and came after him. Louder, angrier, Joshua turned, aimed his cutter, and fired but missed. The beast was too fast. It grabbed him by the shoulder, lifted him into the air. Pain exploded in his body. He screamed, kicked, then pulled a small backup charge from his belt and shoved it into the creature's chest. Boom, a flash of fire and light. The Sky Hunter dropped him, and he fell hard. Crashing into the rocks, his head spun, blood running down his face. The beast turned in the air, ready to strike again, but then the final trap activated. A blinding pulse of heat and light burst from the wall. The creature shrieked in pain and flew away, its wings on fire, its cry fading into the sky. Silence returned. Joshua lay still, groaning. Footsteps approached, Mall-light running. Joshua, Mika cried, dropping beside him. You did it, you did it. He smiled through the blood and pain. Yeah, he whispered. But next time, let's hide better. Joshua woke to pain. Sharp, deep pain across his ribs and shoulder. His head felt heavy and his vision was blurry, but he was alive. That meant the traps worked. He blinked slowly and saw a familiar face, Mika. She sat beside him, holding his hand tightly. Tears were on her cheeks, but she smiled when he opened his eyes. You're awake, she whispered. You didn't die. Joshua tried to sit up, but groaned. His body refused to move. Feels like I got hit by a meteor. He muttered. You almost did. Lyra's voice came from the side. She was sitting up now, too. Her face still pale, but stronger than before. You saved us again, human, she said at great cost. Joshua gave a weak smile. Well, I told you I don't run. For the next few hours, they stayed hidden in the cave. Mika brought water and kept checking on Joshua. His suit was torn and 2 of his ribs were broken. But thanks to a healing patch Lyra had in her pack, he was no longer bleeding. The Sky Hunters had not returned, at least, not yet. The trap had scared them for now. Joshua knew that wouldn't last forever. He also knew they couldn't stay in the canyon anymore. The beasts would come back with more, and next time, there might be no escape route. We need to leave this planet, he said finally. There's a spaceport north of here, past the ash plains. Lyra looked at him with concern. That's over 2 days of walking, maybe more, and I can't walk, he added. But maybe we can find a ride. Mika tilted her head. Like what? Joshua looked at the old mining cart half buried near the cave wall. It had wheels, a power core, and a cargo bed. It wasn't fast, but it moved. They spent the next day fixing it. Joshua gave instructions while Mika ran between parts and tools. Lyra limped as she worked beside her daughter, still recovering. They replaced the wheels, recharged the core with leftover energy cells, and cleared the old track. By the second night, the cart rumbled to life. It rolled forward slowly, but it moved. It was just enough to carry all 3 of them. "We ride at dawn," Joshua said. He didn't smile. He was too tired. But something inside him felt hope again. The next morning, under the pale light of twin suns, they climbed aboard. Mika sat in front, watching the path. Lyra leaned against the side, one arm around her daughter. Joshua lay in the back, his arm in a sling. His eyes on the sky. The cart moved slowly through the narrow canyon. Every sound made them tense, every shadow a warning. But the sky hunters didn't return. They had pushed too far into the beast's territory and survived. Now they were heading out, back toward safety, back toward stars. They moved through dry valleys, over sharp hills, and across cracked plains. Once, they saw bones in the sand, huge, curved ribs of something long dead. Once, they passed a broken tower with strange alien writing glowing faintly on its side. Mika asked questions along the way. Do humans live in places like this? No, Joshua said. We build cities where water flows. What's Earth like? She asked. He smiled. Green, blue, loud, and full of strange things. Like you. She asked. He laughed, then winced. Yeah, maybe like me. They rode for hours. Then the scanner beeped. Not sky hunters, this was different. A small signal ahead, steady and blinking. Joshua leaned up slowly, squinting. There's a small beacon tower in the distance. Still active, a signal relay, likely connected to the outer colonies. If we can reach that, he said, we can call for a pickup. But between them and the tower was the edge of the ash plains, a wide, flat stretch of cracked earth where heat shimmered in the air and the wind howled through piles of black dust. Can the cart make it? Lyra asked. Maybe, Joshua said, if we go fast, but if the wind changes, Lyra added, it could swallow us. Joshua didn't answer right away. He looked at Mika, sitting quietly between them. She had risked everything to save her mom, and now he owed her a way out. We try, he said. No more hiding. They pressed forward, wheels grinding over stone and dust. The sky turned gray as ash clouds rose in the distance. The heat pressed down harder, and far above unseen wings moved through the haze. They weren't alone, but this time they were not the prey. Not anymore. This time. They would fight if they had to, together. The ash plains stretched out in every direction, flat, lifeless. And glowing with heat from the twin suns above, waves of dust swirled across the cracked earth. And the sky shimmered like it was made of fire. The cart rattled as it moved forward. Slow but steady, Joshua lay in the back, pale and sweating, his eyes locked on the dark shapes in the sky. Mika sat in the front, her hands gripping the side of the cart. Lyra steered with one arm, her other hand resting near the emergency brake. The wind picked up, ash danced across the horizon like silent ghosts, and then a sharp cry came from above, not the wind, not a bird, a sky hunter. Joshua sat up slowly, pain shooting through his side. Brace yourselves, he said. They've found us. Two of them appeared first, gliding fast across the burning sky. Wings wide, eyes glowing red. They didn't scream this time. They were silent, focused, hunters on a mission. The cart sped up as Lyra pushed the energy cell to its limit. The wheels jumped over cracks and rocks. Ash flew into their faces, and still, the beacon tower blinked in the distance. So close, but still too far. Joshua pulled himself upright. Holding his plasma tool, it was almost out of charge. One shot left, maybe two. He checked the side compartments, only one flare. No net, no backup. But he wasn't going to let them take anyone again. They're diving. Mika shouted, pointing to the sky. The sky hunters split, one to the left, one to the right. Smart, trying to trap them. Hold tight. Lyra shouted, pulling hard to the left. The cart swerved violently. Dust exploded into the air. One of the creatures missed and crashed into the ground behind them. Tumbling across the plain, the other screamed and came from above. Joshua aimed, fired a flash of light. The blast hit its wing, sending it spinning. But not enough to stop it. It kept flying, now slower, but angrier. The beacon was only a few hundred meters away now. Tall, metal, blinking a silent promise of rescue, but the power cell in the cart was almost dead. The speed was dropping. "We're not going to make it," Lyra said through gritted teeth. "We have to," Joshua replied. Then his eyes narrowed. "No," he said. "You will." He reached for the emergency lever. "What are you doing?" Lyra asked quickly. "I'm getting off," he said. "I'll draw them away." "No," Mika screamed. "You'll die." Joshua smiled weakly. "Only if I stop running." Before they could stop him, he rolled off the side, hit the ground hard, and pulled out the flare. He lit it and waved it high. A stream of red fire burst in two. The sky hunters turned. One broke off from the cart. Heading for him, just what he wanted, he ran into the dust, coughing, bleeding but alive. Behind him, the cart sped toward the beacon. Closer, closer. Lyra didn't look back. She just drove. Mika stared at the light ahead, tears in her eyes. Then the beacon flashed bright. It had seen them. The signal was live. The tower began to hum, sending out a rescue ping across space. If a ship was nearby, it would come back in the ash field. Joshua ran between rocks and bones. The beast was right behind him, closer with every step. Then he saw eaten old crater filled with sharp glass and broken steel. A graveyard from a past battle. He jumped inside. Sliding down the edge, the beast followed too fast to stop. It landed hard and screamed as its wings were cut by the jagged metal. Joshua didn't wait. He shoved the last energy charge into a broken console and jumped back. A final blast, loud, hot. The whole crater lit up with fire. And the sky hunter fell, finally still. Joshua collapsed to his knees. Breathing hard, he looked up at the sky, hoping, just hoping. Then he heard it. Engines, coming fast. A ship broke through the clouds, sleek in silver. It hovered over the plains. Lights flashing. Lyra and Mika were waving beside the beacon. They had made it. Minutes later, the ship landed. 2 medics ran out and lifted Joshua aboard. Mika ran to him and hugged his arm tight. "You came back," she cried. He smiled weakly. "I told you, I don't run." As the ship rose into the sky, leaving the ash behind, Mika looked out the window and whispered, "You're our hero, human, Joshua." Closed his eyes, not because of the pain, but because, for the first time in days, he knew they were safe. And sometimes that was enough.